Hello! Welcome back to the Knowing Who podcast.
Did you forget what we were called? Then?
No, episode 20. It's a special one.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Depending on how you think of special.
Yeah.
It's our last one.
Yeah.
For a while. We will be coming back with the new series. But for now, this is
us walking off.
Yes.
Hand in hand, umbrella in one hand, and
the tea's
Nitro
getting
9 in
cold.
the other, and the tea's getting cold. But more on that later.
Yeah, it's the last episode of series 1. But series 2 will be back.
Hmm.
How are you?
I'm good, thank
I've
you.
not seen you in ages.
Yeah.
Just outside of the podcast.
Outside of the podcast, we've been kind of, ships in the night, really.
You've been busy.
Well, we've both been busy. I don't know why I just went into Sylvester McCoy then.
Oh.
Well, that was a rough attempt.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, no, I'm very well, thank you. There's been sort of little bits of news sort of since last time, really, which has been interesting. I suppose we'll sort of get into that, really.
Pieces.
But yeah, you well?
I'm well.
Good.
Pretty well.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit cold at the minute, actually.
It's freezing.
I'm really. It's that. It
We're
still
both wearing
feels,
fleeces.
Yeah, and it still feels like January, even though we're like now midway through February, and we've
What
had
is
everything.
It's the 16th, yeah. We're
Yeah.
literally halfway.
Exactly. So if that could get a shift on, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. It was warm-ish this morning.
Yeah.
Got cold as I was coming in.
I know.
Anyway.
What a British podcast.
I know.
Hey?
Talking about the weather.
So
what's your bit of news?
the bit of news.
Yes.
Well, I'll start with something sort of hot off the press, really.
Mm.
This was announced. We're recording this on the 16th. This was announced yesterday on the evening of the 15th. I believe at Gallifrey 1, the big Doctor Who convention that's going on in Los Angeles at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Big Finish have announced that Chris Eccleston is back doing audios, but not only, he's not alone. He's hand in hand with Rose Tyler. Billy Piper and Chris Eccleston are back with a brand new series of audios from Big Finish, slotting into the original 2005 series, Jackie Tyler, old and new monsters.
And apparently other friends as well.
Other friends.
I assume not Noel Clarke.
We'll hope they've excluded certain people. But yes, who knows what adventures await them, but it's very exciting.
And there's a lovely picture of them together.
Yeah, really lovely
Chris
picture.
Eccleston probably faking a smile.
But with a bright ginger haired Billy Piper
They
as
look
well.
nothing like they did it's 20 years ago.
20 years, though.
Yeah,
Like,
just
this
in
is
time
mad.
for the 20th anniversary.
I mean, talking about like Sylvester McCoy, who we'll be talking about today, when him and Sophie Aldred started Big Finish in 2000, it would have been, that was 11 years after they'd finished doing Doctor Who proper.
Yeah.
So for these guys to be doing it 20 years after, it feels like both ages away and also like only...
This is the 5 Doctors of the new series.
It's crazy, really, isn't it? But it's also so beautiful that it's happening in the 20th anniversary of, New Who, really. It's all sort of very serendipitous. So that will be in August.
We have a date,
the first
do we?
one of those. Yes.
Cool.
And I think it might be bi-monthly. I'm not too sure. Because I think we've got the Jodie audios starting in July-ish. So, you've got the 13th Doctor and Yaz series and a 9th Doctor and Rose series at Big Finish.
And I saw someone
exciting.
speculate that they might even put 9 and 13 together.
Who knows?
Because they've been
Who
recording
knows?
these at
I know that.
time.
I think Chris has said. I mean, he's had a multi-Doctor story with David Warner, one of the Unbound Doctors. But I think if he said that there was any other Doctor he'd partner with, I think it would be the two northern
ones.
Yeah. So that's exciting. It's very exciting to have that. I think that it's a real nice sort of new step for his Doctor on Big Finish, and it was kind of about time that we had those two together. So really excited about that. I'll definitely be pre-ordering the first one of those when that's due out, because that excites me no end. So yes, that was at Gallifrey 1. Who knows whether there'll be more announcements.
There were little other bits and
around
pieces
then.
from Gallifrey 1 as
Really?
well. I believe they announced that Susan Twist is coming back.
I was at Gallifrey. I saw
I
that.
think so.
I didn't
It was
know
just
the
sort of
source.
dropped on on their
Yeah.
socials, and I assume it must have been mentioned at Gallifrey 1, and they thought, well, we'll put that on the socials as well.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's my guess. We also know that Belinda's surname is one of 2 names.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, I don't have them both in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Belinda Chandra is her name.
Yes, Miss Belinda Chandra.
Miss Belinda Chandra. Apparently the Miss is very important.
According to Russell, yeah.
And then at Gallifrey 1, I believe it was Julie Gardner, said a different surname. So maybe
interesting.
Miss is in relation to her getting
Who
married
knows?
at some point.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the reason she wants to get back. It's an Amy Pond thing. Again,
Right.
Who knows?
Interesting.
I don't know. That's me speculating.
Well, who knows? I mean, we've obviously seen her in Boom already. So are we dealing with like
Yeah.
a Clara Splinter thing,
hope not.
or a Danny? You say
I said, God, I hope not.
Well, are we dealing with that, or a Danny Pink thing, in that
Just do
saw
new
his?
things.
Who knows? Who knows what kind of situation it will be in the old season 2?
We also heard, I don't know if this was at Gallifrey 1, I saw it somewhere, I've just said it to Miles before we started recording. I can't remember where I saw this, but apparently Series 2 is meant to drop in May
Right.
again. Was it May last year? Was it June?
I think
Apparently
it was
it's dropping in May.
May.
That's what I read. Originally we were thinking April, I think, but now apparently it's May.
It's May, right?
Again, don't know where that came from. I could have made
May
that up.
sounds right, because that is literally, I think, a year after.
Well,
the
episode
first
1
bunch.
and 2 dropped with Eurovision, didn't they?
They did, yes.
Yeah,
So whenever
and there's
Eurovision
talk
was,
of a Eurovision thing this year
right?
again. So
Okay, interesting.
that would make sense, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, I think this is the biggest news.
Right.
I don't think, if you do know this, you've made no inkling of mentioning it.
Right. So this isn't, because I mentioned another thing before.
Yeah,
podcast.
it's not what you've.
So
told
the only
me.
other bit of
Should we let
potential
you?
news,
Let's go with. Yeah.
It's I'm not entirely sure on the source, but apparently there are currently some pickups being shot for Series 2.
Yeah.
Season 2, sorry. I'm not
think
sure
for the finale, I think.
potentially, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether that infers therefore that Season 3 is kicking up as well. Who knows? That's kind of the limit of that, really. I don't think there's much point speculating beyond that, but that is a potential.
But they did this
thing.
with the Christmas special. Shooty's first Christmas special, didn't they? They had pickups that they shot while they were shooting the next Christmas special, which went out with the first Christmas special.
And I mean, I can't remember if Shooty's still in The Importance of Being Earnest at the minute.
Well, I've
or
just
not.
had an ad for that recently, so that's going on to the streaming service. You can now watch that digitally.
I saw a clip of that. Him
Yeah,
and
so did I.
Hugh...
And he's really
Thingy.
doctory in it.
Yeah,
I love it.
But he's got an RP accent, which
He
is
does,
like,
yeah.
wow, this is
Yeah.
like if you were playing it as a classic Doctor, this is how you'd be doing it.
I did The Importance of Being Earnest in school.
Really?
My A-level drama.
I've never seen it.
It's a really fun
or
play.
experienced it.
It's
Really?
funny.
Okay.
I
yeah.
actually really like it.
It's a
I rate it.
comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's all about going to the country and you have this alter ego that no one at home in the city knows. And you have a
Yes.
different name
That-
and a different life.
That
and a
tallies
different
with the
everything.
clip I've seen
Yeah.
of Shooty in
Yeah.
it. That's I mean, he looks fantastic in it. He's done a really good job. I'd love to see that. I think it's a National Theatre Live thing, so you can.
It is.
go
Yeah, I
and-
think it's going to be in cinemas as well.
Yes, yeah.
If
you
it
can
hasn't
go,
already
you
been.
can basically go to the cinema and.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
They're
I
really
saw them
good.
with Jenna Coleman in, and it was really because it's like a proper theatre experience. They have the intermission and everything, and they literally just you watch the audience, and you can go up and go to the toilet, I suppose, as you would with the theatre show.
Go get an ice cream.
Get an ice cream. But no, they're fantastic. So maybe might check
Fantastic.
those out. And also a little thing in terms of tonight's. David Tennant will be hosting the BAFTAs.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah,
as well.
and Ariana Grande fans hate that he's sat next to her. Apparently, I saw a tweet. It went viral.
I don't understand.
I don't
any of
get
this. I looked at it and was like, I don't get it.
I saw the picture and it was like David Tennant, Ariana Grande, and a load of B-list British celebrities on A4 sheets of paper stuck to chairs.
Yeah.
And Ariana fans were like, "Oh my god, she has to sit next to them."
I know.
I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Very strange. Very strange.
Anyway, that's not the big news.
But yes, so what
The
is
big
this other bit of
news
news before
is
we move
that-
into the main topic of the episode?
There was a certain episode of Doctor Who that was redubbed and put back on iPlayer.
Oh.
And has since now been taken off of iPlayer
right.
again.
Okay. Yes. So, but might this be Fear Her?
Fear Her.
Yeah.
So Fear Her returned to iPlayer with a new dub of the newsreader part.
Who shall not be named. Yeah.
Yes. They did announce the person playing it, and I don't know what it is because I don't have the video anymore because it's been deleted off iPlayer.
Right. So it got put up.
It got
with
put
the
on
new
iPlayer
dub
for like 8 hours
Hmm.
with a new dub, and they swapped out the old newsreader with a new actress. Who, to be honest, I listened to it and I thought she didn't sound like a newsreader, more just like a voisover artist.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you'd want to place it in 2000 and... Well, actually, it's 2012.
Yeah,
so
it's
to
not
be
anyone
honest,
famous.
It doesn't really,
I
doesn't really
googled
matter,
her.
but yeah.
She's just a voiceover artist. I think she's
Right.
done some Big Finish work as well, possibly.
It would have been very interesting if they'd gone... Now that we've had 2012 Olympics, if we just went and were like, well, who
actually
commentated?
did
Who
it?
actually commentated it? And let's just,
It might have been him. I don't know.
Oh, that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. So yes, it got put up with this new dub.
They put it up with a new dub, and then almost instantly there were comparisons of the original versus the new one, and who thinks this one's better, who thinks that one's better. They shouldn't have deleted it at all. They should have left the original up, that kind of thing, which I don't have an opinion on. And then it came down about 8 hours later because they realised that there was another bit that he was still in that they missed.
Right. Okay.
Because it was a bit sort of more layered into the audio,
Right.
so like it would have been harder to remove. I assume they don't have the original stems.
Well, that's the thing. I can't believe that they've been able to do it because how the hell does all that exist?
I think what they didn't use the original stems. I think they literally used software to cut out the voice, but they left all the music and all the all the Foley and all the audio.
A bit like the kind of tech that they used for the Beatles song.
So they they sort of stitched him out, left everything else in, and then put a new VO over the top. But there's another bit sort of earlier in the episode where it's harder to do that, and I guess they thought we won't do it, and then everyone noticed, so they left it in. But it's hard. Like, I wouldn't have noticed it unless you're really listening for it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they didn't bother with that bit. But now I guess they're trying again. But it was down for 6 months.
6 whole months.
6 months.
Wow.
And now it was back, and now it's down again.
Well, there we go. And it's a very interesting thing to have as well, because it's like one of those. I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's a similar kind of thing in Doctor Who history where it's kind of been a case of, here's the original version and now we've changed it. There's a Sarah Jane episode, I think they did that with Curse of Clyde Langer. I believe that there was some. I think we might have talked about this last time, actually, about they kind of. There was some sort of cultural things that weren't so appropriate in this day and age that they went back and they didn't upload those episodes when they brought all the Sarah Jane onto iPlayer.
They cut them down slightly.
And I think they cut them down and also changed some of the voiceover. I think they got one of the original voice actresses back and redubbed it. So it's not unheard of. So there we go.
No, and they do it in like Star Wars all the time.
I mean, how many times has A New Hope been released with about 7 different dubs of, Emperor Palpatine and all that sort of stuff? Yeah.
But I've still got the original DVD, so if I need to watch Fear Her, which I don't really need to do,
I know that you're
I have it.
Honestly, Ben every day wakes up and sends me a message going like, I need to watch Fear Her.
I really want to watch Fear Her.
So
can we do Fear Her this week?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
So yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's going to be very interesting to see if it does pop up again. I'm sure it will.
Is it going to be another 6 months?
Well, it's interesting because you'd assume that they've tried.
I guess the actual edit probably didn't take 6 months. I assume there was just loads of rights issues. Presumably they had to pay him.
Yeah.
And then they can't take the money off him, I suppose, but they'd have to stop paying him residuals and legals and whatever.
It must be a really complicated situation, especially with such an old episode.
But they did. When they put it on iPlayer, it was in HD.
Oh.
Yeah.
What,
it was still SD, but it was sort of re-exported in HD.
So
even though it still looks like SD.
Are we talking it was like one on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, so it looks like they took... This is what someone else said. I didn't spot this myself. But they took what seems to be the Blu-ray version, which I think you can only get in America still. I don't think you can get the HD versions here.
I think you get them on the Steelbooks and things like that, don't you? I don't know. I
remember seeing that it was only in America when they were first released, but it's been like 4 years. So, but yeah, it's the HD version. The opening credits and the closing credits have been completely redone because obviously there's a new name in there and they had to take out an old name.
Oh, of course.
That's all in HD. But then when you cut to the episode, it's back in SD again. But overall, it's in HD but up-resed.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, and they got the font wrong on the credits.
Oh.
So everything was right. Except for the new name was in a different font to everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, obviously they'll correct those things. I mean, this is the exact same thing has happened with collection Blu-ray sets when they've misspelt because they've redone the credits and they've misspelt an actor's name and they've sent out whole replacement discs just to sort that kind of issue. So it doesn't surprise me that they've gone, fans are annoyed at this. We won't hear the end of it if we don't fix it. So we better fix it now. But
yeah, there
you go. That's another bit of news.
And they've set a precedent, I suppose.
Yeah.
So if this ever happens again, it'll be down for 6 months.
There you go.
Should we move on?
So let's move into today's topic. So to sort of close off this era of the podcast, we thought we'd jump back to the classics, and sort of with the theme of closing episodes. I thought, well, why not take a look at Survival, because we've not looked at any McCoy stuff yet.
We barely looked at the 80s.
We had the 5 Doctors, and that's pretty much it, really, isn't it? So it's kind of, I suppose, kind of fresh territory for you. I imagine that bar clips, you've not seen this episode before.
Well,
interesting. Okay.
I've said this a couple times. Doctor Who on Twitch. I think I watched the first 20 minutes, or the first 10 minutes, because these are only 20 minutes long, of the first episode. Mm-hmm. And then I went back, and as I went to watch these on iPlayer, I had again watched the first 10 minutes somewhat recently. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it was all fresh.
Right.
So I've watched the very beginning of this story a couple times for some reason.
So you know that well.
And I've seen clips. So I've seen the ending before, and I've seen sort of... There's a scene in the middle which I've seen in the behind the scenes outtakes. There's one that's very famous.
Yes, I think I know which one you mean.
Which, I'll get to when we get there. So I've seen bits and pieces, but no, not the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's good to have come to it regardless. I mean, there was a few McCoy stories that I thought we could do, but I just thought this is probably the best one to do. I thought it's interesting to do a 3-parter as well, because less to have to watch in the week, but also
especially I left it till last night.
So so it's kind of the length of maybe like a new series story plus an extra 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But you don't really get any 3-parters outside of the McCoy era. This is kind of a strictly McCoy kind of length of story. Mm-hmm. And it's cards on the table. It's always been kind of one of my favourites of his. I might even say it is my favourite. There's a few others that kind of jostle for it, but it was this DVD and Ghostlight that I brought to a convention in Manchester called Warp, and I got signed by Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred. So I'll have to dig that copy out and take a picture for the old socials. I know. It's back with the old collection. So yeah, it's a kind of a special story and a really interesting one. It's kind of a pivotal one in the show's history, really, not just for the fact that it's the final one of the classic series, and I think that's why it's kind of overlooked a little bit, because it's just seen as, and then Survival was the last one of the era, and no one really looks at it as a story. It's just that was the one that it finished on. So I think it deserves its time of day. It deserves to be kind of explored and dove into. Yeah. So
I enjoyed it.
Well, good.
Just to jump straight in, I enjoyed it.
Perfect.
It was really good.
Perfect. Broadcast from the 22nd of November, so a day before the anniversary, to the 6th of December 1989. Famously the last serial of the original series run. Written by Rona Munro, who we'll obviously know from the new series from These of Light. Directed by Alan Waring, and starring Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, and Anthony Ainley as the Master. So yes, you enjoyed it. Yeah, that's a good start.
I had
really.
Fun.
Yeah.
Sort of. It's, as all classic Doctor Who stories do, it looked a bit dodgy in some parts, and it sort of dragged slightly, but not too much, to be completely honest. It was only 3 parts.
Yeah. Kind of an 80s sound effect there with your watch.
I know, my 80s watch.
Just sort of bringing us back to that era.
But yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. And also, fashion is cyclical, because they're all dressed really well.
It's crazy, actually, thinking, isn't
God,
it?
He could wear that today.
Yeah.
I want to wear that.
Like sort of baggy rugby shirts and baggy trousers. I don't know.
This is late 80s, early 90s. That's exactly what's coming.
Basically,
right now.
This feels like the closest we got to a 90s. I mean, bar Paul McGann's TV movie, which is very 90s. Mm-hmm. This is kind of the closest the original run got to being a 90s. I mean, it was literally a month away from being in the 90s.
Yeah.
So
watching it sort of also looks like the mid 2000s.
It's kind of got that
visually
vibe, hasn't it?
It looks like something I would have watched when I was 4.
Yeah.
On TV.
And I kind of love that aesthetic of that era, because it's kind of that time, we're about to hit the wilderness years, at a time, and it's an aesthetic that Doctor Who didn't really get because it wasn't on for that period. And by the time you get to 2005, kind of things have updated again,
and it turned into high-end drama compared to cheap stuff.
And I mean, for the McCoy era, we were at a point now where everything was shot on videotape. There's no film sequences at all. You know, when we're on location, it's still...
It's sort of, at some points, it does have home video kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Quality, especially when they're on the streets. When they're on the street, on like just normal pedestrian street level
literally
outside
from the start,
homes,
right?
It looks like someone's home video, which I quite like the vibe.
That's the thing. I can understand why, like you've said, people would look back at this and go, God, it looks so cheap. It's it's all very, very sort of, it's outside broadcast cameras, the same stuff that they'd be shooting news packages and stuff like that with, and sitcoms and stuff like that. But I think that kind of has a cozy quality to it, and I don't know whether that's like...
I quite like it.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because we grew up watching
the stuff like that.
Cameras,
not just Doctor Who, but kind of programs from an earlier time. Because in the early 2000s,
a lot of kids' TV would have been made in the 90s.
Yeah,
really.
There was kind of older programs that just would get rerun. Kind of, what was that one called where the parents became children? Do you remember that one?
What?
Oh, I've totally forgotten it. But it was kind of a 90s shot videotape program. That's going to come to me at some point in this podcast, and I'll just shout it out.
Good.
But anyway,
I
kind of like that aesthetic.
And I also quite like how it's all on location.
Yes,
which I assume is a cost
Literally.
thing. I assume they couldn't afford to book out studios or something, and they just had to book out the cameras and go.
Yeah, this wasn't
guess.
the last story recorded. The last one recorded was Ghostlight, which is this whole studio-bound story. So the idea with a lot of the McCoy three-parters is you double bank. Here's a three-parter that's all on location, and here's the three-parter that's all in studio.
Gotcha.
So you get the same thing in every one of his seasons, basically. So yeah, Survival was obviously the one which was like, let's just go to the streets.
It's all on not on set, on location.
Yeah,
I quite like that. I think all the classic Who we've done so far has been basically 100% studio bound, except for the Five Doctors when they're outside the castle. But then once you're inside the castle, it's all studio
multi-camera.
Yeah, so it's quite nice. It's a bit more modern, a bit more New Who, a bit more what I'm used to watching TV in general.
It's more single cam because it's on location. Because even though you're probably using those multi-camera setups, there's kind of the shots of the camera rising when the cheetah people arrive on Earth, and there's sort of close handheld stuff on occasion as well, particularly in the quarry, when there's kind of visceral running around stuff, like Ace when she gets the sort of the rag of burning stuff. I don't know. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it's a
torch, isn't it?
A torch. There you go.
The rag of burning stuff.
I was like, how do I describe this? A torch. And it's all kind of handheld and very, very sort of.
I like it.
It's probably the most modern.
Yeah. Compare it to
could get.
60s Who. It's blown out of the water.
Yeah, but then
looks so much better.
But then you kind of get the whole theme of this story, survival of the fittest.
Boy, do they say the word survive a lot.
Yes. Oh, gosh, yeah. But it's weird how that theme ties in with the state of the show at that point, because you compare this to other... I mean, when was The Next Generation? What kind of era is that?
Star Trek?
Yeah.
That was 1987.
So alongside this is...
It's a very different...
It's a very high-end production on film. Doctor Who is still... videotape, and that kind of look.
I'm surprised you even know it was shot on film.
Well, I mean, you just think of that Star Trek stuff and you think, oh, it's probably HD, isn't it?
It is,
but even the 60s stuff was on film, wasn't it?
That was on film,
surely, yeah.
I think American TV just had different budgets entirely anyway.
So, but like, obviously in the 60s, that stuff was kind of, they've got money, whereas by the 80s, it was like, they are making TV, these guys are making it with cameras that should be used for the horse racing. It's the videotape look is already outdated by this point, and that's not, again, I like that. I think it's adding to there's a cozy aesthetic about it, whether it's intentional or not, but that's why this whole survival of the fittest theme kind of feels so prevalent, because Doctor Who just wasn't cut out to survive in this environment, and there we go. By the end of the story, you get a bit of ADR, and that's it. Bye-bye.
Very hastily, quickly done.
Yeah, it literally written after part one. I think part one had gone out. John Nathan Turner, the producer, was like, I think we might need to.
Did they know when they shot it?
I don't know if they knew for sure that it was going to go.
The fact
off
that
the
it
air.
ends on that shot is pretty lucky, I guess, that they shot that.
I think they shot it not knowing that was the final shot. That was like the final shot of Doctor Who, or whatever. But they shot it, and originally that would have just been a silent sort of the little bit of music, and that's it. That's how it ends. But after part 1 went out, I think John Nathan Turner was like, I think we need to add something on the end there because it's not looking good. So Andrew Cartmel, script editor, just wrote this speech, which is a lovely speech.
It is.
And they got Silva in. They were like, we need to just record this.
Do it pretty quick because we only have 10 seconds of screen time.
Pop it on the end. It fits perfectly. I imagine they probably would have used less of that shot in the actual episode.
Yeah.
But everything sort of comes together. I know we've jumped right to the end, but there
it's
we go.
A bit of lore around the episode.
Yeah. But still, it's kind of it really fits with that kind of that Laws of the Jungle kind of theme. Like thematically, it's amazing how this is Doctor Who at this time. It's trying to evolve, trying to change, and it can't quite get out of
sort of stuck in its ways.
And there we go. But beyond that sort of pessimistic kind of outlook on it, what do we think of Sylvester McCoy?
He's fun, isn't he?
Is this the first sort of? I mean, bar the stuff you've seen on Twitch, is this probably the first time you've sat down and watched one of his stories?
First time I've watched a full
all the way through
one, I think. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, what's your opinion on Mr. McCoy?
He's fun.
Yeah,
I like him.
Fun is an interesting word for him
because he's jumping around and screaming in sort of high-pitched voices, and he's chasing things, and he's stalking cats, and I don't know. I think that's fun. Is that not fun?
No, I think it's fun. It's interesting how you say that because for this season, a lot of people say that it's his more darker kind of era.
It's not dark in this one.
And no, I agree. In part 1, but the thing I do like about him is that in his performance, even though he is being a bit of a buffoon at times, you can see that the brain's always kind of ticking over. Like there's a look in his eyes when, like, Ace will be talking to him, and he'll just he's not there. Like he's listening to in a half sort of sense, but his mind is on a billion other things, and I really like that.
And telling them off and telling them to go away. And
yeah. Like I love that little moment when he puts the cat food out, and he hides behind the fence in the person's garden, and the person opens the curtains, like sort of says,
knocks on the window,
"Go away," and he just turns around and goes, "Shush, shut up." It's a really nice.
I thought that was funny.
It's a really lovely little moment. There's loads of moments like that. He's such a good physical performer. But I love that side of his Doctor, that he is the schemer, he is the mastermind over it all, and there's always a sense that he knows way more than he's letting on. But he covers that with the kind of the nonsense. Really, he has no time for other people's nonsense, like that sergeant, sergeant guy. But he'll be happy to revel in his own nonsense at the same time, with cat food and Hale and Pace and everything like that as well. It's a really great performance, and I love McCoy. I think he's kind of been reappraised now that we've kind of had time to go back to his era. New fans like us who weren't alive at the time, who can actually
weren't alive at the
time.
time.
It's an interesting way of saying that. I don't know why I said it in that morbid kind of way, but yeah, for fans to go back and watch it with new eyes, I think there's definitely been a huge kind of reappraisal of his era since.
Also, his title sequence slaps.
It's great.
I love it.
Yeah,
I've seen it before. I've seen that loads of times. But
I love
it's really good.
The asteroids, which to me always look like scrunched up bits of paper.
Yes,
and they sort of they go with the beat of the theme tune, the ding ding ding. If you notice, they come in at the right time.
And I think it was this is a bit of a side note. I think it was the first fully CGI TV intro ever for anything. I think.
that actually rings a bell. I think that is a thing. Yeah,
it would have been 86.
Probably 86 it was made, 87 that
it's pretty early for CG.
Yeah. And they must have been experimenting with it for stuff, on the BBC at the same time. But
yeah,
I mean, it's a
very
really
BBC thing to just go all out. Yeah, we'll just do a fully CGI thing. We need to test the thing.
And an amazing super 80s logo. I mean,
I
the
love it.
neon logos are one thing, but like this is like
With the handwritten doctor,
thing, the big block,
metal blocky. Yeah, I do like it.
It's gorgeous. It's really,
like that.
it's so retro. And again, that's another one of those things that in this day and age, that's the vibe, that's the look that people
it is
go
the
for,
vibe
isn't it,
currently.
really?
Yeah.
So a lot of praise for him and his wink in the title sequence. McCoy is.
I assume you must have seen the picture of him all silvered up for that photo.
Yeah, which
so
they didn't
weird.
have to do apparently.
Did they not?
They were like, "Can you get some pictures?" And they were like, "Oh well, we'll have to make you have a silver face." And they were like, "You don't actually need to do that. We could have done that digitally
after the fact."
Cool. So yeah, no, very, very. I love the whole. We sort of mentioned the aesthetic of the sort of videotape thing and stuff like that, but the whole 80s aesthetic that leans into this kitchen sink vibe, a bit like we were saying that it's kind of veering into the 90s and the 2000s, and it's really paving the way for what Russell does, in Rose.
Yeah.
I
think this would have been the era that Russell was starting to write his own TV as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think
his children's dramas and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's true, if that's about the same time, then it makes sense that he would then continue on this kind of path. If this is the TV of the time, he would have been watching Doctor Who.
Yeah, he probably would have been writing his own ideas for
exactly.
how he'd do the show around this
So
time.
he probably would have been adapting what he was watching and then taking it from there, which is literally what we see then when the new series comes in.
Exactly, and that's why it kind of... ignoring the TV movie, but like going from Survival to Rose, it doesn't seem like such a leap, bar the way that those pieces of television were made and produced. In terms of what they're trying to do, it's very similar. I mean, you literally have it down to Ace being a missing person by the time she gets back.
Yeah,
it's beat for beat kind of Aliens of London, Rose coming back. You don't really have... Obviously, in series 1, you've got Jackie to kind of illustrate that even further. They actually have the family members, and for Ace, you don't really have that as much. You have her mates and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's not so much an evolution. It's more like it's a very clear progression of like this is kind of the new way of doing it, and Russell kind of went, that's how we need to be doing this kind of thing, just with a bit more of a sort of a modern approach, really, rather than sort of clinging on to the past too much. But I really love all of that stuff, especially Ace and her mates, because it's the kind of what's unsaid which builds the world. Kind of people don't go into a room and sort of say, "Oh, hello, this person that I know from so and so and that I've known since this." It's the way that Ace will just jump into a conversation with her mates and be like, "Oh, how's that bloke?
How's this person? How's that person? Where'd they go? I haven't seen them for ages. They moved down south somewhere."
Yeah, and these sort of half-mentioned names, half-mentioned places and all this sort of stuff. Dead or gone to Birmingham. That's a really lovely lines like that. It's just, that's how real people speak. And it's kind of the first inkling that you get of that in the classic series of Doctor Who. And it's such a shame that it was like... And there you go. Just as you get it, it's gone.
And something sort of similar, something I noticed, I just wanted to point out, the shopkeepers, they're definitely boyfriends, right?
You know what? Probably.
The way that they're acting and arguing, and that's my cat, oh, your cat, and they obviously live together.
Do you know who they are?
Are they famous?
So, yeah,
I have no idea.
At the time, they were a comedy double act called Hale and Pace, who...
Right.
I mean, like... the Ant-Man deck of their day. Well, not really though. They had their own sketch show, basically.
Right. Okay.
Mitchell and Webb. That sort of thing.
That vibe.
But
the vibe I got very much was that's a gay couple. They're not addressing it because it's the 80s.
I bet
that's a gay couple.
I bet Russell would have gone like, absolutely. That's
Russell would
definitely...
canonise that.
Yeah,
you go,
yeah,
no, they are definitely gay.
100%.
I liked it. I was
it's a lovely.
It's really nice that they're putting that in.
Yeah,
they're not acknowledging it, and if you want to think that, you can.
It's nice that it can be read that way.
Yeah,
and it's a really nice. They've got a lovely dynamic. I mean, it's a little bit hammy in places, but it's nice.
Well, that's why I think they're a gay couple.
Yeah. but the sort of comedy of them two, and the sort of the slightly dimmer one, and the way they interact with McCoy as well. Yeah, like the moment when he walks out with all the cat food, and he's like, "I've forgotten something," and he comes out and goes, "Haven't you forgotten something?" "Oh yes, money." No,
No,
wasn't
that's
it.
not it. He
It's
walks
like-
off.
It's
No,
so
no one
it's
pays
so-
for them.
It's so good. Really nice. But and poor Tiger the cat as well. But
Yeah.
you know,
Talk about these cats.
that's the law of the jungle.
These bloody puppet cats are horrible.
They do have the
I
slight
get it.
the
It's
slight
the
look
80s.
of they've come out of a broom cupboard
They look
backwards.
They look sort of not as good as Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I think was after this anyway. But
So was Sabrina the Teenage Witch something before the Netflix show?
yeah,
I didn't know how
it was a
those two
sitcom.
differed.
I think in the 90s.
It was a sitcom.
It was a sitcom.
Right,
It was
yeah.
funny. It wasn't.
This is something I didn't
wasn't-
have. Yeah.
No, so Salem was a black cat,
Right.
and they'd have wide shots of of an actual cat. But then when they needed close-ups of a talking cat, it would be a little puppet with a tiny mouth moving.
Okay.
So every time I saw the black cat in this, I was like, "Oh, it's Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch."
I'm more a
Have
Buffy
you never
person,
seen?
to be honest. I wouldn't
I've
know.
just started watching Buffy
bloody
over Christmas.
brilliant.
I'm in series 2.
Are you on series 2 as
I'm on
well?
series 2.
I'm on the finale of series 2, and
there you
I'm
go.
having an absolute ball with
Yeah.
it. And it's got that classic Doctor Who vibe in places when you get a werewolf, and it's clearly just obviously a bloke.
It's
in
also
a suit.
quite. So it's sort of. I guess Buffy spawned a lot of 90s and 2000s TV.
Oh, it's
But,
been Buffy.
It's very Smallville, and I've watched all of Smallville.
Yeah.
And that obviously took inspiration from Buffy.
I mean, Buffy has a lot to have.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who has a
Yeah.
lot to thank Buffy for because of how it was structured. Russell was like 45-minute episodes with 2-parters here and there.
And
That's
Baddie of
how
the
we
Week.
need to do it. Yeah, Baddie of the Week. It's literally
yeah,
that's how Doctor Who has to be.
and a musical episode.
Which
I haven't
got
seen
to
the
yet.
musical
I'm-
Buffy one, but I know that
that's
there is
very
one.
very exciting. Gosh. it's
Anyway,
great.
sorry, let's not talk about Buffy. Maybe we should do a Buffy episode.
Buffy who? Buffing.
Knowing
buffing who?
Buffy.
I didn't know.
Knowing
maybe not.
Buffy.
Knowing Buffy.
Anyway,
yes.
where are we?
So yes. Back to the
Yeah,
the
the
show.
cat puppets.
Cat puppets. Yeah.
They're funny, but in on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the cheetah people
So
look
what do you
quite
think?
good.
Yeah.
They look really good.
So I agree. I've always liked the cheetah people.
very,
I think that
very Carvanista. is
Yeah.
what I literally wrote that. It looks like Carvanista.
yeah, and kind of
For those who don't
almost
remember, Carvanista was a Flux character.
the dog,
The dog.
the big dog. Dan and Carvanista.
Dan's
don't
boyfriend.
don't Google that, but yes, that is the Carvanista we talk of. But yeah, I agree. I really like the cheetah people. I think they're sort of almost in the same vein as the new series Cat People as well. Obviously of an earlier time. But what's interesting is that the writer Rona Munro saw them and was like, "That's totally not what I." Apparently, she envisaged them as being human, with maybe a little bit of sort of cheetah-esque sort of spots and stuff like that, and the big canine teeth.
Like for the musical Cats.
Yeah, basically.
It's spandex leotards.
Yeah,
as well.
maybe that leotards. But it's really interesting how she sort of said that wasn't how she wanted them to be.
Did she like it?
She said that
Did
was
she
kind
condemn it?
of the failing of the production. Really,
Okay, so she
was,
didn't
was
like
these
it.
because I don't know if you're aware of this, but
Mhm.
Ace obviously befriends one of the cheetah people,
Cara.
Cara, I think. I don't know.
She pronounced it weird.
K-A-R-A, yeah,
K-A-R-R-A.
really.
According to the TARDIS wiki.
There we go. So those two characters, there's a sort of a subtext under there, a kind of a lesbian subtext, like a relationship kind of thing. And Rona Munro's opinion is that because you've got these people in these big sort of
That would be
bear-esque
really weird.
makeups, it kind of gets in the way of that because you can't really read the emotion as much. I don't know if I agree
Maybe
with
not
that
in the
really.
80s, but nowadays furries do that all the time.
Let me go.
I've got a lot of furry written in my notes because that's also the faces look great. With the
That's
emotion and the emoting, the
Yeah.
rest of it looks like a fursuit.
The rest of I think that's the only thing really, because I do think I can picture the face when they're kind of having those scenes together, and you can see the expression behind it. Maybe
Mhm.
it is a bit too covered up. I don't know.
And they all look the same.
And they all
whereas
look
if they didn't have the big masks on, and presumably they all look the same because they are the same mask either
Yeah.
every time or they've made two and they all look identical.
Mhm.
But if they just had some whiskers and some teeth, you could obviously tell the difference between them because they'd all be different people.
yeah,
And I
a
could
bit sort of like the
see-
new series Silurians or
Exactly, and I
cat
could
people.
see I can see why, in order to portray a relationship,
Mm.
you'd want them to look more human,
Mhm.
because also that sort of appeals to the people at home.
It makes it more obvious.
It also makes it very obvious. But if you look at this hot
Yeah.
Catwoman, you'll pay attention
Yeah.
to the what's going on because they do it in everything else. I'm
yeah.
sure Buffy does it, but Star Trek certainly does it.
Mhm.
Sexy Alien of the Week.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. You know,
So I can
and
see Doctor Who wanting to do that.
Kind of, I think that subtext does become a little lost because of the, this is very clearly just a costume, and it's like, how do I interpret
You can see
that?
the wrinkles in it sometimes. The sleeves are really baggy.
I think that's part. I mean, obviously it's part of the charm, but it's not, like Rona Munro says, it's not getting across the original aim of the script.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that though, I actually really like them. I love the planet as well. I mean, obviously,
I'm very impressed with the planet.
It's yet another quarry, but it's got the pink skies. It's got the planets and skies.
I was quite. I didn't even realise it was a quarry. I genuinely thought it was a desert, but obviously it can't be because it's 80s Doctor Who.
Exactly.
So I was like, where is this location? It's really good.
Yeah,
because it didn't look like England.
Yeah, and they must have.
Or Wales or Scotland.
They picked their days well because it's
sunny.
It's sunny. Yeah, it looks really hot. And
it does, yeah. Imagine being in a fursuit in there.
You kind of feel, I mean, what a time to, God, that must be awful. But what a time to be kind of filming in that environment, because you feel that intensity, and it kind of fits the vibe
of the water and
exactly, yeah. And I mean, right down to, again, the visual effects. They get like the reflections in the water of the suns.
There's
and
definitely
stuff.
computer generated eye color changes in shots, and in the reflection of the water, eyes are bright yellow and that kind of thing, which I found very impressive. Because I don't know anything about this era.
Or the very obvious contact lenses in places as well.
Yes, and fake teeth and.
I thought the fake teeth were actually quite good, to be honest. And it's weird because having watched Buffy recently and the vampire thing being kind of an obvious thing, it's weird how...
I don't like the vampires in Buffy, I'll be honest.
They're very
they're very obviously vampires.
Yeah, gritty. But it's weird how looking at the people with the teeth in this, I've never looked at that and gone, oh, it's a vampire. Like, there's a cheetah kind of look to them.
It's
again,
a very catty kind of...
Again, kind of going, well, maybe they could have gotten away with doing a more humanoid cheetah person, and it's still being obvious that this was cat-inspired, it's canine. And the music, I think, really...
It's very good.
That leans into the kind of survival... theme, because it's like grungy guitars and...
It's more modern, again, compared to... the synths and the early synths from the 60s and going into sort of Peter Davison and Tom Baker and that kind of... It's different, good different. I like it. And it sort of brings you more into... As a modern viewer, definitely brings you more into it than...
And it's actually... I mean, they released a few classic soundtracks as sort of albums. It's one of the only ones that I actually got because you can listen to it as like... It's just music, it's really good. It's good music by Dominic Glynn, who composed the Sixth Doctor's title sequence, in the latter half of his era. And it's proper bringing Doctor Who into the 90s, really. Again, another
just
kind of...
cut off.
Yeah, another sort of symbol of like, we got so close, and this is kind of the closest we get, so... the best example we kind of have, really. An impressive sound design as well, because the kind of the howls and the growls of the cheetah people, they kind of really feel visceral and they work really well.
But also on the opposite side of the coin, there's some scenes where you hear a horse gallop and it's the same sound effects stitched on and on and on, repeated.
Really? I didn't even twig
various
that. Wow.
Other sort of bits, like there's a couple growls.
Were you listening to it with the headphones? Or?
No, just on the TV.
Wow.
And there's a couple bits where like someone will howl or whatever, and it'll cut to someone else and it'll be the exact same howl sound effect, and a couple just bits there here and there of just the same thing immediately after being played, so it's very obviously the same bit, which kind of annoyed me slightly,
like stock sound effects.
But also I
was
watching this thinking they probably don't have any budget, they only have very limited resources here.
I also wonder what kind of, I mean, given that this was like the second to last story to be shot, and I suppose they would have dictated more budget to the studio-based story to try and get that kind of looking good. This might have been the kind of the cheaper end of the series budget.
That was my assumption watching it, because there was no studio space.
Yeah,
it was sound effects were like that. All shot on tape. And that kind of that's the vibe I got from it.
But regardless, the kind of the pace of the story, I think, really
pace is really good.
Is really good.
Yeah,
it's faster than your typical classic story. You literally from part one, you're thrown right into it. It's just here we are, here's Perivale, And by the end of part 1, we're on the alien world, and it's time to fight. And here is the Master.
Yeah.
Who we saw in The Five Doctors.
Is that the last time we saw him?
We've seen him. I mean, in
I
the
assume we've
series
seen him loads.
numerous times,
Yeah.
but for yourself,
For us, yeah.
this is the first. You've already seen Anthony Ainley, but this is kind of the last time in the TV series that he portrayed him. He obviously played him in. Have you seen clips of him in the Destiny of the Doctors video game? Gotta move on, slow coach.
No.
You've not seen that on the Doctor
What?
Who Poop YouTube channel?
I don't think so.
Well,
I need to Google this.
I'll have to show you. I'll send it to you after this.
Yes, please.
It was a video game that he did after.
I gathered.
Anyway,
I gathered that much.
Given that I said it was a video game.
From what not from what I understand, I think this is quite a weak use of the Master.
Really?
Yeah, I
suppose
like him
he's not
in
the
this.
main villain, really.
But he is, because he's in charge of the cheetah people, and then he isn't, and then he's only in charge of one of them, who isn't really a real cheetah person. And he's also got cheetah people powers, but he's not using them because he's got a strong mind, Doctor.
Yes.
Going to defeat you, Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't like him.
Did you not like him in this?
Not in this one, no.
No.
I thought it was a bit pointless. Just have some cheetah people.
Mm-hmm. But then you do need. I think you do need a kind of a driving force.
But also,
them.
like, knowing the Master, at least in the new series, he's very much like the most powerful person ever. He becomes Prime Minister, kills tens of thousands of people, whatever. And in the classic series, he's mysterious and he's powerful and he hypnotizes loads of people to do his bidding. In this one, he's just got a bloke who likes being a cat.
Midge.
He's just got Midge.
Yeah.
That's it. When I think of the Master, I don't think of just trying to control one person. I guess at the end he controls quite a few, but like... Yes,
that does come in. I forgot about at the end how he kind of basically has the whole sort of group of...
And do they just give up? Like, they don't all die. They just disappear.
They just run off, I think.
Yeah. Are they fine? Or are there cheetah people running around London?
It is, yeah, I'll admit.
There you go. Hit the mic for the episode.
There we go. Boom. Boom. I'll admit that the Master stuff is probably the weaker side of the story. I like his costume, though. I think his costume is better than his kind of velvet affair that he has throughout the rest of Anthony Ainley's time. But I like seeing the Master kind of on the back foot, because I think that does add a sort of interesting dimension to him, because the Doctor's in the same situation as the Master, but the Master's got the upper hand in the sense that he's been there for longer and he's kind of he understands the world.
He knows how it works.
And yet there's that kind of interesting side that he's being taken over by this element that's kind of, by the end of the story, is controlling him. And it's quite creepy kind of seeing, for that last sequence, the iconic sequence of the Master and the Doctor fighting away on this exploding, dying planet. If we fight like animals, we die like animals. And the Master is completely consumed by this planet, with his teeth and his eyes and everything. It's a really powerful moment, actually, and I remember seeing that clip out of context. That's kind of the main clip of survival that you see. Here was the final episode of Doctor Who, the classic series, and it's them on that red planet battling it out. It's the music and everything in that moment, it does feel like a finale kind of moment. And it's interesting, actually, because it is, in the grand scheme of the story, it is such a brief moment that I think you'd assume would kind of be dragged out a bit more, but it is just like a kind of boom, and then the Doctor's back on the street, being yelled at by a woman.
Does he take himself home? Because he has the eyes for a couple
he
seconds.
does. So I suppose that might be the inference. I don't know. That's one thing.
He takes himself to the TARDIS. The Master wouldn't go. And where does the Master... I know, obviously, in the TV movie, he traps him again as a slug.
There's probably all sorts of BBC books that kind of go into it. Yeah.
Surely someone's addressed what happens between these two stories.
I'm sure if you go on TARDIS Wiki, it's there in writing.
I assume there's also an explanation as to how the Master got there as well. Because
again, that'll be there somewhere. Yeah. But the thing with the classic series is that there was always a kind of an in-joke of like, oh, so you managed to escape from the previous story? And he was like, yes, well, of course I did. And it's kind of never explained. It's just I
they
escaped.
do that in the new series with the Master as well.
Yeah,
to be honest.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of not unheard of. But it's a really impressive sequence, that last one, and I love when the Doctor appears, on the street.
And he's still screaming.
And then the blonde woman who walks up to him, I'm sure I've heard a fan theory.
I've written this down.
It
was a viral Reddit thread
that
went round 2 years ago where someone said that it's just their headcanon that's Jackie Tyler.
That's Jackie Tyler, yeah.
Which I like, but also doesn't make any sense.
Because if we're in
She's already have a flat in central London.
And if we're in the 80s, she's meant to look like Camille Coduri in the Father's Day episodes with all her hair looking...
They look somewhat similar, I get
I like it, though. I think it's a really cool bit of headcanon to have.
It is a good headcanon. I do like it. It's cute, and it's a nice sort of tie to the new series. And I'm sure Russell will probably go, yes, that's canon.
Yeah.
But... And anything's canon. If you want it to be canon, it is.
You choose your own at this point, I think.
They do establish that they already have their flat in the Powell estate in the 80s, and that means they'd move out to
the suburbs.
Zone 4, I think Perivale is, and then move back into the city.
Maybe she's house sitting for someone.
Yeah, maybe.
And their cat.
Yeah.
Blooming cats.
She hates cats. All the cat fighting.
Yeah. That should be brought into a new series. There we go, big finish for Chris Eccleston and Billy
Maybe
Piper
they address
stuff.
it,
yeah, bring it in, and do a cat episode. So yeah, I really like that, and I like it's quite an action-packed third part, really. Interestingly, kind of it. You think that it's all over. It is now.
Yeah, it does sort of just end and then carries on.
Yeah, it's kind of like they arrive back. And it's kind of, oh, thanks for saving us, Doctor. Everyone runs off, and then they kind of have more to deal with,
Yeah, which, to be fair, I was thinking, we obviously still have the Master and what's his name, Midge, running around. So, the episode's not finished.
Can I just say, I love all then, Midge and his little sister Squeak, It's this.
I didn't catch that.
That's what Ace calls her. Well, maybe that's
just
just what Ace calls her. But it's. I love these kind of very 80s kind of names, and Shrieler and whoever the other bloke was, the really scared bloke who.
Well, they didn't know him, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose he was an outsider. And and the Sergeant Patterson as well, who is again part of that thematic thing.
They missed a trick not putting unit on his little shirt. That would have been funny.
Do you think? Yeah, he could have been an ex-unit soldier. Yeah, and I love his kind of introduction in the sort of gym environment when Ace sort of asks him, about where everyone is and everything, and he sort of goes into this stuff about, your mum had you listed as a missing person and all that sort of stuff, and it suddenly feels, like we were saying before, very real. Great characters. They're all sort of part of this great world building that Rona Munro does, and I think she came from a sort of theatre writing background, and it kind of feels like that. You're writing these instantly sort of well-rounded characters from the off that you kind of have to do in theatre. So yeah, well done to Rona Munro for a fantastic script on this.
Out of the two stories I've watched written by her, this is my favourite compared to the Eaters of Light.
Mine too.
I don't remember the Eaters of Light. Shall I go to my notes and see all the weird things that I wrote down?
Yeah, go on, hit us with some more.
The Doctor can just turn people off by poking them in the forehead.
Yeah, it's like his.
I don't think that ever comes back.
His new version.
Does he ever do that before?
Venusian Aikido, but just with a
Vulcan
finger can be a deadly weapon. That boop. Yeah, bang, and it makes a sound effect as well, like a.
Yeah.
Is that a Star Trek thing of the Vulcan?
You pinch them on the shoulder.
Yeah, but it's just
he just
on the forehead.
But that was very funny.
Yeah.
These furries on a horse, they just have regular Earth horses. I thought that was quite funny.
But then they have regular the kitlings. The cats are sort of regular looking cats as well, I suppose. Yeah. So it's kind of animals.
Yeah, I just thought it was very funny. The visual of this man in a fursuit on a horse.
Yeah.
And every time they get off the horse just fucks off, just walks away.
Ace, will you stay still? Will you
don't
stay still?
Don't move! Don't fucking move! There's no one listening to me. Don't move. Yeah, that was
great. That's the outtake that I'm assuming you were talking about.
It was, yeah.
There's some great outtakes for this.
I was watching it and I just thought, oh, I know this one. I know this scene.
Yeah.
I know exactly
One of my
this is.
favourite outtakes is it's one sort of shot in the. I think it's like that one of the final bits in the gym at the end, and it's the doctor going, so much for survival of the fittest, and Sophie Aldred is about to sneeze, and she goes, and Sylvester McCoy goes, oh, Sophie, you got snot all down my front. There's lovely little outtakes from this one. A good bunch. I'm sure you can find them all on YouTube.
I will.
Have a look.
Oh, there's an amazing, really funny line. It's not like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually like, it's not a joke, it's not a quip. It's like, it's just, Ace just goes, do you know any nice people when they meet the Master? Like, anyone in the universe, do you know anyone who's nice?
Yeah.
I think that's just, I laughed out loud. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I really enjoyed it. It looks cool, cozy, nice vibe. I really like how the whole thing looks. And then it was near the end of part 2. You just see a shot from the Master's POV with his little cat vision. And it just looks so bad. It just looks awful. And I thought, and I was really liking how this looked.
That's the thing. You've got to hedge your bets, because if you're starting to think, oh, this is actually really good, you've got to go, there's going to be a moment in here which
something will happen that I don't like anymore.
Yeah.
And everything I said about fashion being cyclical and they're all dressed really well, when Midge comes back with his sunglasses and his shiny suit, horrible.
That's
worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a shame, because the fashion at that point isn't that bad.
It's actually really nice with the baggy, oversized jeans.
There's some good gear.
He comes wearing these shiny sleeves, but not the main suit, and it's puffy.
He's wearing sunglasses. He's definitely got shoulder pads. On. Yeah.
It's just horrible. It's so bad.
And the shades. Yeah, it's.
I get the shades though. He has to hide the eyes.
True. It's very sort of TV movie Master.
I can see that.
Maybe the Master went, I thought I like them shades. I think I'll take them for when I'm Eric Roberts. Bruce. Go on, anything else before...
the Master just straight up stabs Kara. I don't think... Obviously, the Master kills tens of thousands of people in the future in the new series, and I'm sure he's killed people in the past. Yeah. I don't think he ever stabs anyone, or he never does it. He normally gets someone else to do it.
Doesn't he... Missy stabs herself.
That's different.
That does count.
Fine. But normally...
Master's a person, Ben. He's allowed to be,
he's suicide, technically. No, but normally, like, the Master gets someone else to do his bidding. In this one, he just straight up stabs her.
Yeah.
I thought that was very weird.
It's very visceral. I mean, it's sort of... That's this story.
Cheetah people.
Yeah.
He's being taken over by the woke mind virus.
Kara played by Lisa Bowerman, who plays... Bernie Summerfield for Big Finish.
I've never listened to any Bernie Summerfield.
She's very good, and she directs.
I've seen her in loads of things.
Well, she directs a lot of plays and all sorts. She's kind of a stalwart of. So is that a word?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's one of those.
Stalwart.
Yeah.
I don't understand why she lost the cheetah person mask when she died, though.
I think it's kind of...
Is it just so she can get some screen time?
Yeah. I need to get my face out here rather than under this bloody mask.
Yeah, I didn't get that. But I did recognise it. So I was like, oh, no, I know her.
But it's kind of that moment
I just thought, why on earth? Why?
I guess it's kind of showing that all these people are... They're people who've kind of become...
Was she originally a human who was taken to the cheetah planet?
That's the implication, I think.
Right, okay.
That everyone gradually evolves into these cheetah people. Although the Kitling... the little cats, I thought
they grew into people. Yeah.
Anyway,
because it says literally like they're babies or something.
They're the young.
Yeah.
I love that line where McCoy talks about sort of predators and prey, and it's the whole thing of predators bring their prey home, and it's the kind of idea of wherever your home is, you bring your find back to them. It's really thematically, I think this episode has a lot to say, and I think it does very well with those themes. It's a very intelligent script, and it's a great way to sort of round off the classic era of Doctor Who, and I think that it deserves a bit more appreciation as a story in its own right, rather than just purely, just like an Unearthly Child. Well, I suppose An Unearthly Child is more like that is just a great piece of television, especially that first part, and people do accept it for that. But it's kind of like a story is more than just its place in history. It's got to be sort of taken for as, it's just a really good piece of telly, and it's a kind of a clear indicator of where the series goes when it returns in 2005, just with kind of more of a modern kind of take on it, really, in a different format and different cameras, different and better effects, so it's nice to see that. And,
although series 1 does look horrible in some parts.
20 years old though, man. It's crazy. That's insane, actually, how we're at a point where the time between Survival and Rose is shorter than the time between Rose and now. Like, that's really mad.
Rose was March 5th, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2005.
That's in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
Or 2.5.
Sort of, yeah, something like that.
That means, we should go one more and do Rose. I'm joking, I don't really.
Michael Grade will come in and cancel us before then. Well, there we go. That's Survival. That is the final story of the classic era, and the last story from us for a bit as well. This is closing off our season 1 of the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the past 20 episodes.
Yeah.
Of Knowing Who.
Yeah. We will be back. I'm sure we will.
Oh, I'm sure. We'll be back. I don't know what that quote was. Sort of half Terminator, half William Hartnell. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the quote. We'll be back. Yes, we'll be back.
We're back. You know what, Ben? I know the exact way, unless you have anything else to say.
I don't think so.
Good. Well, I have the perfect way to close off this podcast. And I will say this, Ben. There are worlds out there where the sky is burning, where the seas are asleep and the rivers dream. I'm not going to do it in his voice.
No.
People made of smoke and cities made of song. Somewhere there's danger, somewhere there's injustice, and somewhere else the tea's getting cold. Come on, Ben. We've got work to do.
Yeah.
There we go. Bye!
Bye, guys.
Oh. You've been listening to Knowing Who, another Doctor Who podcast, with me, Miles Taylor.
And me, Ben Davidson. Thank you to Sonny King for producing our theme tune.
And thank you to you for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus YouTube on the Tailored Vision YouTube channel.
You can also follow us on all social media channels at Knowing Who Pod.
Catch you next time for more Knowing Who.